प्रजासृजेति नारायणात् प्राणो जायते मनः सर्वेन्द्रियाणि च खं वायुर्ज्योतिरा.
T. Krishnamacharya, the man whose name has become synonymous with yoga. He gave yoga its contemporary form and popularized it throughout India and the world. Known simply as Acharya to his students, he was an inspiring and enthusiastic teacher until his death at the age of 101. Tirumalai Krishnamacharya was born on the 18th of November 1888 in the state of Mysore. His family's lineage can be traced to Nada Muni, the famous 9th century South Indian sage. Krishnamacharya's education began with his father. At the age of 12, he enrolled at the Brahma Tantra Parakala Mutt in Mysore to study the Vedic texts. But this did not quench his thirst for knowledge. He attended universities in Benares and Mysore, studying Sanskrit, logic, grammar, Vedanta and Sankhya philosophy. Krishnamacharya's curiosity extended far beyond the walls of universities. Deeply fascinated by nature, he spent his holidays trekking in the Himalayas. In 1916, at the age of 28, he walked 211 miles in 2.5 months to the Manasarovar lake in Tibet. There, he met the greatest influence of his life, Sri Rama Mohan Brahmachari, a great sage with whom he lived and studied yoga for 8 years. It was at his urging that Krishnamacharya decided to devote his life to spreading the message of yoga.
These are some of my father's royal disciples. He used to go all over India at the invitation of the Maharajas. There were many Maharajas those days to teach them yoga. So this is some of the kings who used to take yoga lessons, and they also had some photographs taken. This is, for example, the Maharaj of Kolhapur. This is the royal family doing yoga, the palace, Baroda palace, the king and his family and his physician.
In 1926, the Maharaja of Mysore, Sri Krishna Rajendra Vodeyar IV, requested Krishnamacharya to teach him and his family yoga. Soon after, Krishnamacharya set up a yogashala at the Jagan Mohan Palace in Mysore. He taught yoga for 20 years there before moving to Madras because of political unrest. In Madras, his fame as a great yoga teacher grew. Because he believed in adapting yoga to the requirements of each student, he staunchly refused to develop a standardized method of yoga for everyone. And now, nearly a century later, his teachings of yoga are still relevant to modern lifestyle. Another of T. Krishnamacharya's great gifts was his ability to combine a thorough knowledge of yoga and other ancient Indian philosophies with 20th century values. Above all, he was a true acharya who practiced what he taught his students. For Krishnamacharya, yoga was far more than a physical discipline. He saw yoga as a means to develop wisdom. For him, yoga was, in the end, a form of bhakti, the path of devotion. Surprisingly, despite his deep-rooted beliefs in God, Krishnamacharya was a master at adapting to the times. A path breaker, he questioned rigid norms of the day. Krishnamacharya was one of the first men to teach women yoga and Vedic chanting. His wife and his sister were adept at yoga, and today his daughters are themselves yoga teachers. In 1937, an American woman asked to study yoga with this great master. Although she was an older woman from a foreign culture and faith, Krishnamacharya was able to make yoga relevant for her. She later changed her name to Indira Devi and was a pioneer in taking yoga to the West.
And when I was leaving, Krishnamacharya told me, "You are leaving us now and you will be in different countries. I want you to teach yoga." I said, "Me? I can't teach." And I remember in one of the classes in the beginning, when everybody was doing the Paschimottanasana, forward bend, whatever. Well, feet on the floor stretched, and you inhale, exhale, and you touch your toes. My hands were so far from the toes that I asked one of my co-students just to push me from the back. And she told me, no, you can injure a rigid muscle. You will do it by and by. And I remember on the floor looking up at him and said, "In my next incarnation." I never thought ever that I would be able, to touch the top with the toe, etc. And end of the story, when he insisted when I leave India that I teach yoga. And as I said, and he started giving me instructions. I wanted me to write it down. And in India, you do not contradict your teacher. So I was writing down and thinking he is losing his time and mine. And so I must say it was to me my great luck and privilege to be able to spread yoga the way I was taught by Sri Krishnamacharya. And it is pure yoga. He was very strict with me, as I said at the beginning, and I'm so glad.
Our Acharya was traveling all over India to talk and show the yoga practices. He would give lectures, he would demonstrate asanas, he would show the effects of yoga. For example, he has demonstrated more than once the possibility of a human being to stop the heartbeat. 2 minutes you stopped heart. That was mental control or physical control?
But it is mind, not only mind control, mind and prana and...
Krishnamacharya's teachings have influenced practically all contemporary styles of yoga. Students like P.K.S. Iyengar and Pattabhi Jois went on to become renowned teachers themselves. Krishnamacharya also taught yoga to all of his children, and one son, T.K.V. Desikachar, eventually became one of his most devoted students. In 1976, with his father's blessings, Desikachar established the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram, or the KYM, an institution to spread the teachings of Krishnamacharya. Today, the KYM carries the wisdom of Krishnamacharya's teachings to thousands of people by enhancing their health and quality of life. Krishnamacharya's skill as a physician is well documented. An authority on Ayurveda, he believed that a disciplined lifestyle was essential for good health. He measured the nadi or pulse of every person he taught and used this as a basis for designing an effective personal practice. Today, this is the same method of diagnosis practiced at the KYM, a technique Krishnamacharya called surgery without instruments.
I was very stunned by my father helping people who had so many illnesses and who are not from India but from abroad. So for me that was a stunning experience, how Westerners would come to my father who hardly could speak English, who never studied medicine, but all these people got so much benefit. I was not interested in yoga. My passion was technology. But this experience of foreigners coming to my father, where he could heal people with insomnia, some people could not have children, chronic asthma, stroke, people who had stroke, where the doctors had almost given up. And my father could heal them, was the one that influenced my choice to be a yoga student.
Krishnamacharya's own life was simple and orderly. He maintained this discipline, leading an active life for over 100 years. In 1984, Krishnamacharya broke his hip after a fall. Lying in bed, he practiced yoga that cured him of the injury within 2 months.
Brahmanyo devati putro Brahmanyo madhusudano.
The most influential yogi of the 20th century celebrated 100 years in 1988. It was a recognition of his many great achievements. Krishnamacharya was a melting pot of knowledge. In addition to being an expert in yoga, Krishnamacharya was a linguist. He understood Hindi, Bengali, Urdu, Kannada, Tamil, Sanskrit and English. He was also well versed in grammar, the Vedas, Upanishads, Ayurveda, astrology, religion, Carnatic music and Indian traditions and rituals. Perhaps the most remarkable characteristic of this learned man was his ability to synthesize all this knowledge. Throughout his life, Krishnamacharya strove to use this knowledge to heal people. Today, his legacy lives on through the work of his family and many students around the world.
Nama iti